The rain had not stopped for 3 days, and the house felt colder than usual, even with all the windows closed. Thomas stood at the edge of his living room, staring at the scattered toys across the floor, tiny pastel blocks, a stuffed rabbit missing its left ear, and a pink blanket his daughter refused to sleep without. In the shadowy dimness, his breaths felt heavy, as if each one carried the weight of the life he never expected to live. He had lost his wife 2 years ago, and every day since had been a quiet battle between exhaustion and survival. He never cried, at least not where anyone could see him. But tonight he felt dangerously close to breaking. The world expected him to be strong, to be everything his little girl needed. But inside he was simply a man barely holding himself together. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected love, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps the channel grow and allows us to bring more inspiring stories like this to you. Thomas wasn't looking for love. He wasn't looking for comfort. All he wanted, at least that's what he told himself, was a little help. Someone who could take care of his 6-year-old daughter Ella when work consumed him, when grief overwhelmed him, or when the house seemed too quiet and too loud at the same time. But every caretaker he had hired left after a few weeks. Some said it was the long hours. Others simply didn't connect with the little girl who rarely spoke more than a whisper. They didn't understand her silence. They didn't understand her softness. They didn't understand that grief had carved a space inside her that only patience could fill. One afternoon, after another caretaker quit without saying goodbye, Thomas found himself sitting in his car outside the local community center. A small handwritten flyer on the notice board caught his eye, someone offering part-time caregiving services. The handwriting was neat, the words gentle, almost as if written by someone who truly cared. The number was short, simple, and he dialed it without expecting anything. That was the day he first heard her voice. Lena sounded calm, warm, and reassuring in a way that touched something inside him. She didn't push, didn't oversell her abilities, didn't pretend she had all the answers. She simply said she would be honored to help and could stop by the next day. He hung up feeling strangely hopeful, but he reminded himself that hope was dangerous. Hope created expectations, and expectations often led to disappointment. The next morning, he opened the door to a young woman in a light blue sweater, holding a soft smile that didn't seem forced or practiced. Her hair was tied back loosely, and she stood with the posture of someone used to being gentle around fragile things. She stepped inside quietly, almost as if respecting the house's lingering sadness without being told. Ella peeked at her from behind the sofa. She always hid from new people, always watched from a distance as if waiting to see whether they would stay or disappear. But something was different this time. Lena knelt down immediately, not too close, not too far, and simply waved, placing a small handmade paper flower on the carpet as if offering peace. She didn't try to talk to Ella. She didn't pressure her. She just sat there quietly, giving the child time to come forward on her own terms. For the first time in months, Ella stepped out from behind the sofa, walked toward the paper flower, picked it up, and held it close to her chest. Then she looked at Lena with a softness that Thomas hadn't seen in so long that he felt his breath catch. In that small, almost invisible moment, something shifted. He didn't know why, but he knew his daughter felt safe. Days turned into weeks, and the house began to change. The silence that once felt suffocating slowly transformed into something gentler. Ella started humming again when playing with her toys. She began eating with a little more appetite, sleeping with fewer nightmares, and smiling. Tiny smiles at first, but beautiful nonetheless. Thomas noticed everything, even the things he didn't mention. He saw how she reached for Lena's hand without hesitation. He saw how she leaned on her shoulder while drawing. He even noticed how the house smelled faintly of cinnamon on the evenings Lena cooked their meals, filling the air with warmth he had almost forgotten existed. He told himself she was just a caretaker, someone temporary, someone passing through. He didn't let himself think of anything more, but the truth was much harder to ignore. Lena brought life back into the home, not by replacing the past, but by gently filling the spaces grief had hollowed out. She helped Ella plant a tiny garden in the backyard, introducing her to the joy of seeing something grow. She taught her how to braid her hair, how to make simple crafts, how to tie her shoelaces with a little bow, And every time Thomas watched them together, he saw what he feared most. His little girl was healing, and he was falling for the woman who made it possible. He fought those feelings, burying them deep beneath layers of excuses. She was temporary. She had her own life. She wasn't here for him, she was here for his daughter. Love wasn't part of the agreement. Love wasn't safe. He reminded himself of these things every single day. But feelings don't ask for permission, and hearts don't obey contracts. One rainy evening, after a long day at work, Thomas came home exhausted. His shoulders sagged under the weight of everything he carried: responsibility, fear, loneliness. But when he stepped through the door, he saw something that made him stop. Ella was asleep on the couch, wrapped in her pink blanket, with her head resting on Lena's lap. The soft glow of the lamp was the only light in the room, and Lena's hand gently stroked the child's hair with tender, almost motherly affection. The scene was so natural, so peaceful, so complete that Thomas felt something inside him crack open. He wanted to look away. He wanted to deny what he saw, but he couldn't. That was the moment he realized she wasn't just temporary. She was home, yet fear whispered in his ear. What if she left like all the others? What if Ella got attached and then lost someone again? What if loving her only led to more heartbreak? So he acted like a coward. He thanked her too formally, avoided her gaze, and pretended everything was normal. But his distance didn't go unnoticed. Lena remained patient, never pushing him to explain himself, never confronting him. She simply continued to show up, continued to care, continued to love Ella in ways that seemed effortless. Then came the afternoon that changed everything. Lena arrived later than usual, carrying an envelope in her hand. She looked tired, almost conflicted, as if wrestling with a decision. She explained softly that her part-time internship had offered her a full-time position. It was an opportunity she had been working toward for years, one she couldn't ignore. They would require her to move to another city. She wanted to tell Thomas first before discussing notice periods or transition plans. At that moment, the air seemed to vanish from the room. Thomas felt something cold coil inside him, but before he could speak, he heard a tiny sound, a sharp, heartbroken gasp. Ella had been standing behind him, her small face crumpled, tears pooling in her eyes, her tiny hands trembling as if she had just witnessed the world collapsing again. She ran past them both, up the stairs, slamming her door. Something inside Thomas snapped, not with anger, but with clarity. He realized he had spent so much time protecting himself that he had forgotten love wasn't supposed to be safe or logical. Love was supposed to be brave. It was supposed to heal. It was supposed to give someone the courage to open the door again, even after everything had fallen apart. He turned toward Lena, who looked devastated by the child's reaction. Her own eyes glistened, as if she were hurting too. In that moment, he saw the truth he had been avoiding. She wasn't leaving because she didn't care. She was leaving because she didn't know she was wanted, needed, loved. He took a slow breath and finally allowed his heart to speak. Not in dramatic declarations, but in the quiet, trembling honesty of a man who had run out of ways to lie to himself. He told her how much she meant to Ella, how much she meant to him, how her presence had changed everything. He told her she wasn't just a caretaker. She had become part of their family in ways he could never replace. Lena's tears fell freely now, not from sadness but from relief. She admitted she had been afraid too, afraid of overstepping, afraid of loving a child who might lose her again, afraid of loving a man who might never be ready. But they both knew the truth now. They wanted the same thing. They wanted a family. Ella peeked from the top of the stairs with red eyes, waiting, trembling, hoping. When she saw Lena open her arms, she ran down the steps and threw herself into her embrace, sobbing with a mixture of fear and immense relief. She held her tightly, whispering soft reassurances as the child cried into her sweater. The next weeks were full of slow healing, honest conversations, and gentle rebuilding. Lena still accepted the job offer, but she asked if they could all move together. A new start, a new chapter, a new life. Thomas agreed, not because he needed a caretaker anymore, but because his daughter had found a mother, and he had found someone worth choosing every single day forward. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support truly helps us continue creating emotional stories that inspire and uplift. Before we end, special request, Comment below, what part of this story moved you the most? And that became the beginning of a family built not by blood, not by contracts, but by love, courage, and the quiet miracle of finding exactly what you never knew you were searching for.